Looking for airtime, Brian Jones articulated the group's philosophy. The band's policy is to play authentic Chicago rhythm and blues music, using outstanding exponents of the music such as Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Bo Diddley, Jimmy Reed, etc. The BBC turned them down on the basis that their singer sounded too black.
I'm gonna say how it's gonna be. You're gonna give your love to me. Love to last more than one day. Well, love is love and I fade away. Well, love is love and I fade away.
As the Stones began to find success, they signed up with manager Andrew Loog Oldham, who initially tried to clean up the raw rhythm and blues image of the band.
Andrew had this real talent for sort of making a splash and a fuss and centering attention on you, which would have taken us a lot longer probably if we hadn't have had someone like Andrew. And he was younger than any of us, so he had a very young and very, very irreverent attitude.
We were scruffy. So we were the only band around, never wore a uniform, of course, right then, because we didn't have the money for it. So we just used to go on stage in whatever we were wearing at the time. Andrew took us down and tried to get us into these little suits and smarten us up for television and all that sort of thing. We didn't really want to know, and so we just... Various members just lost bits of the uniform, so we never looked the same anyway.
Wherever they go, and you get a lot of traveling in this business, the fan mail follows them around, and it all gets answered. Bill Wyman dressing and reading at the same time. Brian Jones tuning up. A matter of seconds now, and they'll be on stage. And just listen to that audience.
I said the joint was rocking, going round and round. Yeah, reeling and a rocking, what a crazy sound. And they never stopped rocking till the moon went down. It sounds so sweet, I had to take me a chance. Rose out of my seat, I just had to dance. Started moving my feet, clapping my hands. I said the joint was rocking.
By the time the Stones found chart success in late 1963, they had already outgrown small venues like Giorgio Gomelsky's Crawdaddy Club, and Gomelsky began looking for a band to replace them.
We didn't want a copycat band of the Stones just to keep the audience, you know. I always felt that we could go further. One element that was kind of missing in the Stones was instrumental improvisation, you know. And so we said, we need to get a band where there are people that can play solos.
Gomelsky found what he was looking for in the Yardbirds guitarist, Eric Clapton. Only 18, Clapton was already a knowledgeable blues player, and his fierce devotion to the music shaped the band's initial direction.
Through most of my youth, that my back was against the wall, and that the only way to survive that was with dignity and pride and with courage, and I heard that in certain forms of music. I heard it most of all in the blues, because that was an individual. It was always one man with his guitar versus the world. And it wasn't a company, it wasn't a band or a group or anything. It was, when it came down to it, it was one guy who was completely alone and had no options, no alternatives whatsoever other than just sing and play to ease his pain. And that echoed what I felt in many aspects of my life.
Well, I'd heard him quite a few times with the Yardbirds in the early configurations when they were starting, and probably for the first year. But I mean, Eric really hadn't got his chops together as you know, he'd probably tell you. I mean, he was just learning to play the blues.
Made me walk from Chicago. Oh, Louise, you've been gone. Oh, right.
Clapton was the first of 3 successive lead guitarists who would make the Yardbirds one of the most influential groups of the decade. The Yardbirds released only 1 album with Clapton in the lineup, but even before it hit the charts, Clapton had moved on. By 1964, blues in Britain was on the road, but most of the bands were finding success hard to come by.
You only see bands that were going up and down the M1, you know, living out of a suitcase, the Ford Transit Advantage, checking in out of B&Bs. I mean, that was life, so there wasn't any speculation about whether you were going to do this or do that. You were just, you know, out there somewhere, you know. And then when that was over, you might check in, had a couple of days off, and then there was more. So there wasn't any time to sort of... The Rolling Stones was a different operation. They had like a whole management setup, and they, you know, had money and that. I mean, you know, we never got paid. We never got anything, you know.
Most blues groups paid little attention to the business side of music and often found themselves artistically compromised. The Animals' first single, a song chosen by their management, was a chart success, but the Animals hated the song's poppy sound and refused to perform it live.
Hey, you've done very well. You've got into the hit parade. You're the first Northeast group to get into the hit parade. Have you got a follow-up record coming up?
Yeah, it's called The House of the Rising Sun. It's on Columbia.
You're going to do that one for us in just a minute, aren't you?
Yeah.
What other things have you got lined up? Big dates?
Yeah, well, we just finished one, the biggest one of our life, my life anyway. That's the Chuck Berry tour. We're going on the Chuck Berry tour. Everybody's going to try and out-rock Chuck Berry. What we need is a song that will stick in people's memories, and we got a good slot on the Chuck Berry tour. And let's do this this song that is like out of tempo. It's not that dun 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 dun. It's dun 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 dun. And people will remember it. They'll leave the theater remembering the song, the one song that was different out of the whole night. And it worked.
America had all but forgotten its blues heritage, but was about to be hit by the revolution that had jolted the British pop scene.